So, it's all finally over. The game has been played over the final few episodes, and it's fair to say that reaction has been mixed. But that's not what this video is about. That comes later.
That comes later.
Instead, as promised, this is a video wherein we're gonna go back through my Season 8 Game of Thrones theories. We're gonna judge them on whether or not they were right. I'm gonna give you my thoughts on what actually happened, and if I'm wrong, I'll take a swig out of this fantasy-themed alcoholic potion. Cheers. There's too many to list, but I'm pretty sure we'll lose at least 5. Count them, 5 named characters by the end of the battle. Look, as theories go, this was pretty low-hanging fruit, I'll admit. Of course, a bunch of people were going to die in the battle for Winterfell. That said, I did get the number exactly right, so I'll spare myself a drink for this one. We lost Ed from the Night's Watch because he stopped to try and help Sam during the battle. We lost Lyanna Mormont as she used her badass stabbing skills to take out an undead giant. Sir Beric, we barely knew ye. Theon Greyjoy went out like a total badass defending Bran from the Whites. And finally, Ser Jorah went out in a blaze of glory, defending his queen with one last "Khaleesi, please, please Khaleesi." Honestly, out of all of those, I do have to say that it was really only Jorah and Theon's deaths that felt really emotional and impactful. That said though, it seems that unlike a lot of people out there, I actually really dug this episode. It was a great combination of an endless battle mixed with this endless, hopeless horror of creeping undeath that doesn't stop and nothing in its path will slow it down. This wave of death and tension was so well built up that by the time no one stabbed the Night King in the chest, I jumped off the couch and cheered. It was like I was watching football and my team scored a match-winning goal in the final minutes of the game. The fact that a TV drama could put me in that same emotional state as watching a live sport really speaks to how awesomely made this episode was. In fact, that whole sequence in the lead up to the Night King finally falling was really well produced, from the editing to the soundtrack to Jon breaking cover and yelling at a dragon. Most of it was really well produced. Anyway, no drinks on this one. Beric Dondarrion is going to play some kind of pivotal role during the battle, and as he does, he's going to go out in a blaze, a literal blaze of glory, because his sword lights up. Now this one, I'm a bit prouder of having gotten right. Every death Beric accrued, every life he lived led up to this one moment. It led up to the moment that he could save Arya so that she could kill the Night King. And so, as much as this season felt like it had left a lot of the world building and the lore that this show had built up over the years, this was a payoff for something that we've been hinting at since season 2. And it was one hell of a payoff. So, even though I got it right, here's to you, Sir Beric. I know who Azor Ahai is. It's Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen. In what's going to be a pattern for my next few predictions, it turns out that the prophecy of Azor Ahai didn't really play out in the way that anyone predicted it would. Now, if you're feeling cynical, you can say that the show totally threw the prophecy to the side. But if you want to give it credit, you can say that Azor Ahai actually wasn't one single person. It was a collective. If it hadn't been for Jon, Dany, Bran, and Arya all working together with their combined forces to take down the Night King, then winter never would have ended. In the end, it was their unity that saved the world, not some mythic hero out of legend. It wasn't a hero's tale, but rather a story of people coming together to help fight an overwhelming problem. And that really seemed to be the ultimate thematic message of this final season, which is a good hint for some real-world issues. Climate change is coming for all of us and we're all gonna die. Anyway, here's to the team. Daenerys is shot by a bolt or an arrow and is killed. Speaking of setting things up and then not delivering. After not one but 2 scenes last season where Daenerys is warned not to keep flying out in the open because she's really vulnerable and she might get shot by a bow or a bolt, well, she dies by getting stabbed in the heart, both physically and emotionally. As I say in my The Last Jedi video, setting up story threads only to cut them off isn't necessarily a bad writing style, but it's certainly one that rings hollow for me. Though I guess technically a few bolts did come out of nowhere to quickly kill Rhaegal, so in a way, I was right, but not right enough. Here's to you, Rhaegal. That was like number 4 and I already feel tipsy. This is not... I have work tomorrow. And the person who's gonna shoot that arrow, or crossbow bolt, is Samwell Tarly. And here is another pitch that the show never really swung on. Dany burninating all of Sam's family was a huge plot point last season, but it's one that ultimately didn't really build up to anything this time around. Her rash and incendiary actions didn't really have a consequence. Sam found out, he got a little sad, and that's it. He does make a little snide comment to Jon, but nothing that changes character in the grand scheme of things. And on top of that, we never find out what happens to his mom and his sister. He doesn't even ask about them. So here's to them, I guess. The Clegane brothers will finally face off. So I'll take a half sip for this one. I predicted Clegane Bowl would happen, but it did not really go down the way I thought.
This is not going to go the way you think.
I was imagining a pitched battle, and the Hound was gonna be getting his ass beat, and either Brienne or Arya or someone else would have to step in to tag team the Mountain. Instead, he does get his ass beat, but he goes with a strategy of tackling a character off of a very tall building and down into a fire below, so that the audience really knows that those two characters are dead. Or as I call it, the Claude Frollo. Anyway, here's your half sip. Here's to you, Cleganes. In probably the final, or maybe the penultimate episode of the show, Queen Cersei is gonna get Queen Slayed by the Kingslayer Jaime Lannister. So, like 99% of the internet, I was totally wrong on this one. Instead of going back to King's Landing to kill Cersei, Jaime falls for his tragic flaw. No matter how bad Cersei gets, no matter how many evil things she does, he will always love her. Ultimately, I really liked this turn for Jaime. It was disappointing because I wanted him to be better, but that's how it goes with tragic characters. They fall back on their worst impulses, no matter how much we as an audience might root for them. That said, I did think that Cersei not having a grand master plan once the attack began, or even some kind of plan B, felt really out of character. Even if she never did get to execute that plan B, whether it was like wildfire or something else, it would have been good to get a line of dialogue to at least tell us that she had one. And the key to that plan B was that Cersei would have expected Dany to be merciful when the city surrendered. Instead, Dany burns the whole place down, and the plan B would have failed. So even though she had a plan, because she misunderstood or underestimated her opponent, it ultimately was for nothing. Instead, it seemed like her whole strategy relied on the Scorpions being able to shoot down Drogon, and when that plan failed, well, there was nothing much else left. There was no master plan. Here's to you, Lannisters. As the show has gone on, the ones the world had written off are the ones that are claiming it. They will have broken the wheel that kept people like them down for over 1,000 years, and they will rise. It's their turn to sit on the throne. I mean, I guess I got this one right. The wheel is broken and the meek did inherit the earth. The old monarchy is gone, and the 6 kingdoms now have a noble high council that elects new rulers. And so Bran is chosen, a son of Ned Stark who had been totally written off by the world because of his injury. But though he could not walk, he learned to fly, and he rose to be king. Brienne, a woman, rises to become a knight and captain of the Kingsguard. Tyrion, a dwarf cast aside by the world, is reinstated as Hand of the King. Sam, who everyone in the world laughed at, is made Grand Maester, and Davos, who was once nothing but a lowly smuggler, has now become Master of Ships. But that's just the thing. The wheel was destroyed, But was it destroyed enough? The new system feels a lot like the old system. And the fact that this oligarchy of nobles who pick the king just outright laughed at the idea that Sam proposed of democracy doesn't really inspire faith in this new system. What if they all can't agree on a king in the future? Do they all just go to war again? Aren't we all right back where we started if that happens? Has anything actually changed? But anyway, the wheel's broken, the meek have inherited the earth, and I will count this one as a win. And you don't spend 8 seasons building up to that revelation unless you pay it off in a big way. Jon is definitely going to be the king. So I guess I got this one totally wrong, even though the idea behind my theory was kinda right. The duty and goodness of the duty. I would not be laughing at that if I weren't drinking colored vodka right now. Whew, refocus. Even though the idea behind my theory was kind of right, the duty and goodness of Ned Stark was ultimately rewarded at the end of the story. Duty. However, this reward didn't come in the form of Jon becoming king. Instead, no one actually finds out about Jon's secret identity.
Hey, Batman, don't you want to ask Carol if she'd like to know your secret identity? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. But I don't get the feeling she's interested.
Instead, he gets to walk out into the wilds and leave it all behind. He rides north of the wall with all of the free folk and very good boy Ghost. And when the gates finally shut on the kingdoms behind him, he smiles. He's finally free. And the fact that his heritage doesn't matter ultimately reinforces the message that Season 8 is going for. There is no one savior. There is no queen who will liberate us with fire, and there is no king who will save us from an endless winter. The true solution to the world's problems is the best and brightest working together to solve those problems. The solution isn't some champion out of legend. So here's to King Bran and the Noble Council. They did their duty. Sansa will become Wardeness of the North. Boom! Back on the win streak. I don't really need to elaborate here. Sansa deserved it. Sansa got it. All hail the Queen in the North. Once Cersei is dead and the Great Wheel is broken, Arya's quest for revenge that began all the way back with Ned Stark's death will finally be over. She can finally let go, and she'll sail off into the sunset with everything she's learned over the years, all the abilities she's picked up, and she will decide her own future. And the streak continues. I cannot wait for the West of Westeros spin-off if they ever do make one. I just really wanted to go balls to the wall high fantasy. I'm talking like ancient Greek mythology, fighting hydras, avoiding maelstroms, getting stranded on islands and having to stab cyclopses, and eventually rising to godhood. Or at least like cool Pirates of the Caribbean style adventures. The first Pirates of the Caribbean. So all in all, that is 6 theories right and 5 theories wrong. Not bad. That's a win. P's get degrees. And I'm pretty tipsy right now, so let's end this before it degenerates.